Alright, so welcome back to the shop. We have showcased the Holley drop-in fuel cell pump we're going to put in for the EFI conversion here in the Duster. Time has come to go ahead and get rid of the biggest drawback to the fuel cell, which is actually the cap. Again, if you've had a fuel cell for any length of time, you know what a pain in the butt those caps can be. You get to the gas station, sometimes it opens, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes topping your tank off turns into like a 5-minute ordeal just to get the cap off. And that's not good. The new Holley unit, again, black anodized spin cap, sort of like an oil filler on a valve cap, valve cover I should say. It's going to be a nice upgrade in and of itself. So in this particular case, this is a Summit cell, and everything on it is a 6-bolt flange. The screws, the nuts that we've got exposed there, they're going to actually need a 7/16 socket or wrench. We're going to go ahead and spin those off, take everything out, and then in this case this is a foam filled cell, and Holley mandates that you pull the foam out not only for your measurements, but I also checked with them way back in the day, and they said that do not run foam in the cell with one of their pumps. So we're just going to pull it out. Don't know what I'll do with it. I'll put it in a box somewhere, I suppose. But, I'm not sure the ethanol doesn't eat that crap anyway, because I've had nothing but trouble since the ethanol jump in gas, and it's been a nightmare. Hence in part why we're converting from a carb to EFI. But we'll just go ahead, spin these off, again 6 of them, and then take a look at the flange, start pulling the foam out, and then we can move on to the installation. Tools we'll need, obviously, ratchet socket 7/16, got a wrench over there, some gloves for when we're digging through the fuel cell, just in case there's any rough edges on the cell or the flange. I've got the Holley parts in there. Eventually we will want to incorporate our probably our 911s from Channel Lock, just to snip the return tube and some fuel lines. That's it. I will get going and we'll take it from there. Welcome back to the nightmare. I've recorded this and everything was going fine aside from the fact it didn't record, so I had to do it again. And in my attempts to get the second one out, if you can guess from what I'm doing, we had some small issues, and that's all it was. Just a wrench in the tank, right? I don't even know if that's showing up, because super awkward one-man show trying to do something like this and film it. But basically, I think where I went wrong, I don't own stubby wrenches. These are the Husky 7/16 I've showcased. They're cheap, they're nice wrenches. The finish, just from this, it's kind of coming off. Actually, I think this is the one I used for the cabinet, so I take that back. Right here, though, these are extra length, and this is where you kind of start to have this stuff pay off. This is great when you need leverage. This is great in tight spaces. This is a standard length, good old Craftsman. It's going to go in here because this is ridiculous what you're having to do. Once upon a time, this spun off just fine. The bolts themselves kind of stayed anchored, and the nuts would come off. I know because I put that ground strap on. But I basically have to come in with the wrench at an awkward angle, feel around blindly, turn that in a manner that I can catch, pin this, come in with my socket, start spinning. Pray that you don't drop the wrench the entire time. It comes off. I've mentioned this before, but I'll have to do it again. We've got the nylock, then we've got a nylon washer. I assume that's sort of like a fuel-related safety. Now I want to release the wrench, bring it out safely. These, by the way, are my 90-degree needle nose pliers that people always make fun of me for having. They're amazing. They come in handy for situations just like this. But this time, I'm going to back that down. I'm surprised the other one fell into the tank. But here it is. That is our nut, or bolt I should say. That's backwards from normal. What does it measure? It is about 1.25 inches. Yeah, 1.25 inches on this one. So is there any, there does seem to be some sort of a washer provision on the inside of this flange. That could be a problem. I'll find that out as I continue to struggle with. But basically, I've just got to repeat that tedious process 4 times, and we might make some progress. So hopefully that showed up on the camera. Again, if you ever thought there were fancy production values or people filming for me, there's not. There's me and a tripod, so I do the best I can. And we'll knock this out and be right back. In an effort to be as genuine as possible, I want you along for the ride. So I've gotten all of them out. It honestly didn't take that long. Granted, I still have to fish a bolt out of the cell. But this is our last guy, and I know he's been off before because I put a ground strap there. Got it, caught it. Now, we just come in with the trusty old Craftsman here. spin her off as best we can. Nearly lost the wrench there. It's loose. Coming off. Luckily, we only have to work with like a ½ inch or so on the bolt. And pull that. Hold on to this guy. Oh good, the flange will come out. I thought it was going to be seated awkwardly or something. I'm going to push this down. It feels like something is coming with it. It is. So I'm going to put the bolt back through to hold whatever I'm feeling blindly. There's my flange. Beautiful. We'll set that to the side of the tank. Again, I hope this shows up because I'm not able to look at the camera. I'm dropping this down. Okay. What is this? What have I got here? A horseshoe. It's good luck. No, this is it. This is what was inside. That explains what I was feeling. So, basically, this plastic piece sits inside the fuel cell. The bolts come up through the plastic of the cell. This is sort of what I was feeling that I thought was possibly, you know, like a nut insert type of a thing. The gasket itself is in fact round. It's not got the horseshoe shape, so that sits like so. The top side's where the corrosion was, so we've got that in place. This is the ring of the fuel cell, which is nothing fancy, just a little stamped piece. So I'll go ahead and stick that there. That one was there, so just for my records, I'm going to slide this in so I can remember how this was assembled in the odd event that I forget or the footage is destroyed. That's one of the perks of recording, is you have footage of what you did in the event that you screw something up. But there we go. So that's kind of that. And that just dropped out, not a big issue. I've got that taken care of. And this is my flange. So with that out, our opening is roughly 3 3/4, it's looking like, in diameter. We'll just stick it here as well. Just shy of 4 inches, you could say. Yeah, we'll run with 3 3/4. So my hand surprisingly does fit. Now here's the $1,000,000 question, and you'll be so proud. Dun da da dun, we've recovered the missing bolt. So that's sort of a pain. It's not too difficult. It helps if you're not filming, I'll say that. But I'm going to go ahead and get the gloves on, start pulling the foam out, and we will take it from there. Alright, so we're back. I've got sort of the dust knocked away. I always want to wipe that away from the tank. But we've got the Holley parts here. This sort of mimics what we saw from our, which I don't think you can see it anymore, but our plastic piece from the Summit cell. It's sort of hard to tell if this matches up. It's so thick it kind of casts a shadow. Here is their gasket, and if you line it up with the holes, we will find, fortunately for us, that things do match up perfectly. So we've got that out of the way, and that means it is time to do some digging. And rather than, this is a plastic cell. If it was metal, you definitely want to wear some protection. But I'm going to go ahead and put the gloves on regardless. Start trying to see what it's like pulling this foam out of the tank. So I have no idea. There seem to be multiple pieces. The good news is foam is pliable. You can just work it out. I've always wanted to see this stuff and kind of compare it to like standard foam, you know. So that's a pretty big chunk. Oh yeah, that's definitely saturated with fuel. Not saturated, I should say, but you can smell fuel in it. That took out a lot of the foam. Let me see. We've got some back this way now underneath the return. Let's see if I can get it out. I'm trying to do this gently. That's sort of difficult to do. But I will say the foam seems to be staying intact, so I'm trying to avoid cutting it. And it's pretty awkward. There's sweat in my eyes. Super hot. This has come out. Alright, so this piece was kind of up against the back wall of the cell, sort of like that. Again, I don't know if this is showing up on the camera or not. We've got some way over here, and it seems like a smaller piece. It was. Cool. Set that down. We've got one here. Also seems smaller, at least compared to that back sidewall. Come on. Got it. Pretty big chunk there. I think it was kind of up in this front section. We've disturbed some and made it appear it's seemingly smaller. Standard size. I don't know if my eyes are watering more from the sweat or the gas fumes at this point, but got this one. Is there anything left in here? That's now my question. Yep, there it is. Alright. Is this where wife, girlfriend, kids would come in handy? You got smaller arms than you. Anything else? We did it. I believe we did it. Everything's out. So that was awkward. If you're ever curious about how much foam is in one of these fuel cells, now you know. And it's definitely, if I could share the smell with you, I would. It doesn't, granted, I have no idea what this looked like prior to installation, but I've always wondered if the ethanol sort of ate away at this, and I'm not sure that it did. I mean, if it did, I don't have any baseline to compare it to. But it's cleaned out, and we can now drop down and take some measurements. So that's what I will do. I'm going to check up on the instructions again, just sort of a rough general idea here. Straight down with the old Stanley. We're sitting about 9 1/4, I would say, just kind of eyeballing and sweating my eyes. So we'll see, hopefully. That matches up with like an easily achievable setting on our Holley drop-in pump, but I'm excited to have that flange out, that old Summit one. So I'm gonna get some Gatorade and get back on this shortly. Alright, so I've done some measuring, and my cell, like the majority of you that have a cell, unless it's like strictly circle track or flat bottom, it is sumped. We've got a 2-inch sump in the bottom of this fuel cell, so essentially if you were to dump something down that return or vent line right here, it would hit the bottom and it's going to flow this way towards where we have our outlets to go to the tank, right? So that means that we do not have a flat surface here. At this point where my index finger is, we're going to be sitting 9 1/4. The two sides, of course, at least luckily, are going to be symmetrical. They are 9 3/4, and then the full front here where the pump flange would sit down, we're looking at about 10 inches to the bottom. So we essentially have 9 1/4 at this point to 9 3/4, so we've got a 1/2 of an inch differential there. And then 9 3/4 to 10 inch is another 1/4 of an inch slope across the entire spectrum of the pump flange area. We're going from 9 1/4 to 10 inches, so 3/4 of an inch differential. There's really not going to be a way for us to use these two guide rods and stagger the pump. I don't know that we would want to do that anyway. It probably needs to be level to function optimally. But we're going to cross that bridge when we get to it. So right now, the next step, we want to take this filter sock, which again, I'm assuming you can see this. I can't see the camera at all. You know what? I've actually got a flip out screen. Why did I not think of this earlier? 1 second. Oh, I'm a genius. Or an idiot. I'm not sure which. I can see what I'm doing. I forgot that's a feature on this camera. I did do that the first time I messed with this cell, which was months ago. But this is our filter sock, right? I've pulled out this little blue cap, and from what I can tell by the way of the pictures on, let me get that in the camera, this brown cap, that's going to come off as well. We've sort of got like this metal insert. I'm going to see if I can get it up there. Maybe you can see where there's this tab, sort of like a star. There's also on this pump going to be a similar feature, which again, now that I've got that screen out, man, it's so nice. So we will take this and place it in like so. We want it seated firmly, they say. I'm not quite sure exactly what that entails, as I've never installed a pump sock before. That's, I'd say, seated pretty dang good. The front side, not so much. This side I feel confident in, right? If I get that down where you can see it, hopefully. This is where like sort of a little more clarity and instructions would be good, but they want us now, I believe, just to measure from the bottom of the flange to the filter sock, and we are sitting at about 9 1/4 right there. I think you can kind of see it. Now just take my word for it, it's awkward, I don't want to spin it around. But 9 1/4 would actually be the top side of the hole, and I'm assuming if I drop this down, I wonder if it would hit there and be clear the rest of the way. So let's do that, just to say we did. I think that's actually pretty legit right now. If it's, I don't think I'm dragging, honestly. I think this is just a really nice anodized finish gliding across the plastic of the cell as opposed to that really cheap stamped unit. That's kind of the route I am leaning anyway, so I think that might actually work. I'm going to go ahead and read the instructions, kind of verify what I'm doing before we do something really dumb, and then I'll probably orient that a little bit differently. In fact, I guess we should think about that. So that would be turn. There's all sorts of ways we could do this. I'll play around with this, figure out how I want to do it, and make sure we're ready for the next steps, and we will take it from there. It would be amazing if we didn't have to mess with any of the mounting on that though, so I'll double check all that and we'll be right back. Alright, so we are back. One of the things we were to do, which I kind of saved off until this point in time, is to come in, lay out our gasket, make sure everything matches up, and then these two tabs in the gasket, which I'm not sure that you can see them, I'll go ahead and come in and mark them. Got to recenter here real quick. This gasket's quite the mover, I must say. So I use silver Sharpie because we've got black plastic and I've got silver Sharpie. If you don't, anything will work. You can even scribe it. I'm going to pull that out of the way. But on this gasket, you can kind of see, if I drop it down right here, let me just come closer for you. You can see the tabs. That's actually designed to be marked, and the reason we want to do that is we want to drill sort of at the back end of that with a 3/16 drill bit to allow for a zip tie, because as you know, that ring in the summit cell that I just took apart that was kind of a pain that I had to catch with my hand, Holley apparently had the foresight to think of that, plus theirs is metal and it is significantly heavier compared to the plastic one that was in there. So where you see it's a 6-bolt pattern, right, and these are drilled and tapped inside the flange. Let me actually get that where you can see it working around here. And so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 drilled and tapped, but these two right here, thumb and index finger, those are not tapped. That is solely designed for a cable tie. Not quite sure why they didn't include a black cable tie, but that's just a minor thing. So I've got my drill ready. I'm actually debating what I want to do to try and catch the plastic. It typically either spins out or spins down, and I never really know. It kind of depends on the drill. I haven't used this one a ton, but I guess we'll go for it. So we got our 3/16. I prefer rigid. That's the route we're going to go. I have not center punched it. I'm hoping that won't be necessary, and I should probably kick it back just a little. Let's see what we can do there. Okay, not too bad actually. So the good news is, with the foam removed, I know you can't really see down in there, little shard, the majority of it actually is right here in my hand. Piece about a quarter of that length fell down into the cell. I'll be able to see that, pick it up. What I want to do though is take the flange, which you can clearly see here as I work solo. But we want to make sure that that matches up with the bolt patterns. Realistically, you might be better off coming in and spinning this way, just going through there, maybe getting the center punch down. In fact, that's actually what I'd recommend. That'd be way better than using this as a template. That's what I get when I follow directions and don't think for myself. But my advice, get everything to line up with this and then come in and use these actual pre-drilled holes. They'll be the two that are not tapped, to come in with a center punch or even hit it with a Sharpie, whatever you prefer, and take it from there. So I will finish out this other side, make sure everything checks out, and I shall be back. Alright, so we've got things decently lined up as best I can tell. So what I'm going to do here, again, we've got this horseshoe shaped piece, not really horseshoe, but circle with a slot in it. If you're curious, how does that fit? Well, common sense, man. I'm going to drop it in like so. And what I want to do, we're going to come in and I'm going to indicate that this is one of my cable tie holes. So I want to take it. Well, actually, I guess I don't have to have that gasket just yet. So we'll drop this down. Again, this is all one-man show. If you had a spare set of hands or a third hand, that would be really awesome for things like this. But I'll try to catch it. Hopefully you can see my forearm's not in the way. It is. It totally is. My apologies, but you just have to bear with me here. I'm going to not secure that completely because I want to try and see if this one lines up decently. It seems to. So we'll drop it down, position it accordingly. Okay. Black would totally be better in my opinion. Whatever. So that is that. That is loosely in place. It's hanging free of my hands. And I think it looks like it's going to line up again. We'll set the gasket down in place, kind of take it from there. I've cleaned out all the plastic from inside the cell. There's just a little bit down in the sump, the only fuel that's present, and there's a lot of like metallic sand looking crud, and I'm thinking that's swill from the pump that comes with the ethanol territory we've been giving, and that would explain a lot of the issues we have with filters. So anyway, I'm going to try to get this thing lined up, and then we're going to move in and measure that. I've also picked up this 4mm hex. It should be brand new because I've never had to use it. It dates back to when I was like 14, and most of what I do is SAE. But the pump hangers are 4mm. Our measurements are a little bit different, so I'm going to make sure this is good, and then I'll come back and we'll try to walk you through adjusting the fuel pump height. Alright, so this is a little bit awkward of an angle again, but essentially what Holley wants us to do is come in and measure from the flange to the top of the filter sock. I've got that thing fully seated, I'm confident in that. Where this sits now to the top of the sock, or basically the bottom inlet of the pump, it's going to be about 8 3/4. I don't really know that that's visible. Kind of looks upside down and backwards to me, but not in person, and that's all I care about. Just take my word for it. 8 3/4, and the catch is they want that measurement to be the same as what we had from the top to the bottom of the fuel cell. Now, if you recall, that we had a range from 9 1/4 to 10 inches. They don't really specify what to do if it's an uneven bottom or a sumped floor, like the majority of fuel cells I assume would be. So all I can assume is that we would want to come in and maybe half that. So I'm sort of thinking if our range from 9 1/4 to 10 was 3/4 of an inch, we would want to sort of split that down the middle. So 0.75, we're going to call that, 0.375 basically. And so we would want to go with 3/8 of an inch in that case. And what we would want to do there is just come in and adjust this down from where it sits now to about, I guess, 9 3/8 to the top of the sock. So what we need to do is use the 4mm hex wrench, and again we're going to have, if I can get this in frame for you, let me bring it up top, actually it'll be easier. We got one on both sides where each rod is. We've got the black anodized piece, so 4mm here, and then same concept on the flip side. It's not going to be this one, it's going to be here, 4mm. This one, if you're curious, that's going to be if you ever needed to replace the pump, as best I can tell. So pretty trick setup, very simple yet very trick at the same time. It's kind of how that stuff usually works, is it not? So what I want to do, and I guess we'll try to do it on camera, is come in, just loosen that a little, and come flip to the other side. Take this one. I'm not sure why you would have to install the filter sock. I think you could just measure to the bottom of the pump, because it's the exact same thing. That's already plenty loose enough. So what I need to do, and it's going to be awkward to film and do this, but I want to take, you can kind of get an idea for the adjustability there, and what I want to do is get the filter sock to that magic position of 9 3/8 of an inch. So I'm going to come in and try to do that, I guess, off camera, and then I'll just sort of show you what I did, because again, I only have 2 hands sadly, and this is super awkward. But hey, if anyone wants to be part of the film crew, you get paid nothing, but you can say you were here and did something. And maybe then I could do more, but nonetheless, I'll be right back and we'll see where we're at. Alright, so we're back. I've got this locked down with the 4mm hex. It's still super awkward to showcase this. I want to give a reference point right here. This, man, that's hard to see. This tab, if you can see it right here, that's going to be what our return, you can see the port right here. Our return line is going to drop down. There's that plastic tube we're going to have to cut here in a second. I use that sort of as like my default measuring point, so it's always the same. And if you look at this, you're going to be like, dude, that's 9.5 inches. Well, and I would agree. It's 9.5 inches, like right to that center section of this filter sock. On the top side, though, again, if you kind of go from where that pump is seated to where the top of the filter sock is, sort of as your reference point, and it does have some flex to it, but it's kind of like between 9 3/16, 9 1/4, somewhere in that range. I think I misspoke earlier in my references, but just bear with me. I do everything on a time crunch, if you were unaware. And that is where I'm confident with this right now. I'm going to record that measurement, so basically 9 1/4, I might just call it that. And that should, in theory, put us down right at the top of that sump. And then, of course, we got down to 9 3/4, 9 1/2. The filter sock, as you can see, has a little bit of bulk to it, not too much. It's a pretty slim profile, but that should take care of it. Ultimately, we're going to be able to drop this thing down. I don't think we'll be running on the bottom of the cell. We'll still be able to pick up from that point, and you could probably go a little bit lower, but I don't know if I want it resting on the cell. Again, they don't really, it's kind of a sad thing that they don't give instructions for sloped fuel cells, which again most of them are, at least in drag racing applications, like our Duster here. But nonetheless, I think we should be fine with this. We'll set it down and take it from there. I've also been looking, and the sump actually has portions of fuel that sit below the two pickups in the sump, so I guess it's kind of a moot point when you factor that in. It's just kind of like not fully thought out in my opinion, but hey, it is what it is. So we're going to come through, and like I said, I think next up we're going to do the return tube. So I'll check that out. We'll get our channel lock cable cutters, and we'll be back to have some fun with this. Alright, so I've taken some pictures of our fuel pump assembly, which is down here in the corner. Don't think you can see it. I went in, I need to tighten this up once we cut it to length. Got my nut drivers. 1/4 inch, no. 5/16, no. I don't know what it is, some metric size. So we're going to come in, take advantage of our sweet wheels here, and just use the flathead. But what you want to do on this, it is your return tube, and it's going to slide onto the pump assembly and be clamped into place. It needs to be cut 1 inch shorter than you actually measured in step 4 when we came in. In our case, since this is a sumped fuel cell, we basically have 9 1/4, 9 3/4, the two center points, and then 10 inches. Essentially right here at the backside closest to the bottom of the sump. It's a 2-inch sump, by the way. And so what we're going to do is come in and cut. I've got this marked right there. I think you can see it. I like to use my channel lock 911s. They're not intended for this stuff, but they work fantastic for things like this. So we simply line it up like so. I'm going to cut a little bit. You can always cut shorter, can't cut longer. So I'm going to leave a little bit of the silver on the top side. Let's see what it cuts it like. Like butter. Like butter. Good old channel lock, I tell you. I'll set that down. Again, everything we bring in actually serves a purpose, and we do use it. So some of them not as much as others, but when they do get used, they are much appreciated. So we've got that. If we decide to modify it or change it a little bit, we can do so. Basically, all this is going to do, this is going to bolt up to the pump on this side with our hardware, and then the fuel from the return is just going to dump back into the cell. So which hopefully the benefit for me will be running cooler and less vapor lock issues. So what we want to do now is tighten this up to the pump assembly. So let me come in. That's right, you got to see my shoulder there. And I want to grab the pump, cradle it awkwardly off camera, position my hand to where it should be. This is the tab that I've been referencing. Again, I took all my measurements in relation to this position. It just sort of worked out good. I've also marked them in Sharpie so we can track and see if anything traveled. It shouldn't, but hey, if it does, we'll know about it. So I want to come in and take the return, press fit it. I couldn't imagine needing the hose clamp here, but let's push it on. Alright, there we go. Quality stuff here from Holley. So that is fully seated now. Hopefully you can tell. We're going to take the clamp. We will loosen it with our VH Pro turn. Which again, this is so far one of my favorite screwdriver sets. And take it like so. Spin it. You know what? I kind of want to reorient this entire clamp. I'm a little bit. If I do something, by gosh, I want it done right. So I'm going to reorient it to my personal preference, which will be to have the screw head come in like so. I'm going to drop that down. I actually need to loosen this quite a bit to clear that clamp. Or the barbed fitting, I should say. One singular barb. Alright, you probably heard it seat over that. I'm going to come in. I know this isn't on the camera, but trust me, it's awkward. So, we're coming in, we're tightening her down. I just love the way this one feels in my hand, the Pro Turn. So, it's a relatively cheap bolt. I don't want to round it out completely. But that's what I've got. That is my assembled hanger. So we're roughly an inch or so difference between the 9 1/4 and 8 1/4 here. And we've got that. Again, that will be the return. Seems to me, well, you can. I was going to say, I wonder if the filter sock needs to be spun around. so that wouldn't come down on top of it. But you can't, because there's this tab on the bottom side that they wanted us to align it with. I think you can kind of see it right there. So the filter sock's sort of in a fixed position, as is that. There's no flex anywhere in the line. So this is the hardware up top. It is tightened down. I think you can see it. We got our 4mm taken care of. All that's basically left is to trim these cable ties. I'm not exactly sure where they want the big side of it. I might point them into the tank, but at the same time it'd be easier to service up top, but I think it might interfere. There's no reliefs cut into this flange for them. And the gasket, yes, and the flange, no, so I'm thinking it needs to be flat like that. And what I'll do is I'll just trim those. I've got my trusty old needle nose channel locks here for that. And I'll be positioning everything, getting the gasket in place, and then we'll probably drop that guy down into place and take it from there. Alright, it's getting later in the day, and we are almost done with the install of the pump. Granted, it's still got a wire and everything, still got to plumb it, but dropping it into the cell is taken care of. So for whatever reason, the hardware up top, I'm able to get by with this 3/16. Luckily I have it on a socket. If it was metric, I would have been up a creek and I would have been turning an L key for a very long time. As I mentioned, we're able to just kind of drop it in and take it in stride. So I'll tighten this thing down. We've got the seats that we need to get in, and everything else we should be golden. So we're closing in on it, man. We're closing in on it. So, one of my big complaints about this unit is that it was expensive and didn't include all of the fittings we need. Case in point right here, that is the AT98508 ERL. That is from Earl. That is a required fitting. It is for your fuel return. I've got that in place, just need to tighten it down. And then the fuel out, what is actually going to feed the lines that will go to your carb or fuel injection unit. This is also from Earl's AT985010 ERL. Let's go ahead and open it up. These are both probably something you're not going to have locally, even if you've got a speed shop. They could probably, I mean, anywhere can order it for you, but it's one of those things, if you buy this, this will hold up your installation. So we're going to come in and spin that in place. Both threaded in beautifully. I have no complaints about the fitment in that regard. But since I was, you know, kind of cheap, and everything I did was basically 6 AN, but every once in a while I'd have a bigger fitting, like these bulkheads off the fuel cell to block it off. I just got an adjustable AN wrench. I would recommend these if you don't do a ton of stuff. If everything you plumb is AN, go ahead and invest in a solid wrench. But this one, it's just adjustable, and I gotta say, it's basically worth its money. So all that's going to do is allow us to not ruin the finish on our expensive anodized fittings. So I'll just carefully come in, spin that around. Again, I guess this would be the critical side. The other one's not going to have, I guess it will be pressured, but nothing like this one. So I want to tighten that down, make it smaller for this guy. This is actually going to be an awkward one to reach. Keep in mind, everything's easier when you're not filming it. Let's spin that, come back in and grab it, do it like that, and it's feeling pretty good. I guess I'll go ahead and tighten her down the rest of the way. That is that, man. This Holley fuel pump that I've been so excited about. It's going to be like one of the foundational pieces for our fuel cell. We've got it. We've got our fuel injection ready to go. I just got to get everything lined out. Right here, this will be a godsend. This cap, it looks like something you see on a valve cover for an oil filter, or I'm sorry, oil filler, I should say. We thread that on. That is now where we are going to fuel. That's if we go to the gas station, if we had a Sunoco jug of fuel right here, we'd spin that off, dump it down. Super simple, super easy. We are golden on that front. Basically what we wound up needing to remove everything, we needed 7/16 wrench, 7/16 sockets, ratchet. If you have a stubby, keep that in mind. It would be much easier to work with. I got by with this old Craftsman. The new Husky, this extra length was too long. You could probably get a few of them, but stubby is the way to go. Let's see here, a 3/16 drill bit, a 3/16 drill, silver Sharpie, black Sharpie, some way to mark and identify some holes and measurements. You're going to need a tape measure, rags to clean up with, gloves for when we pulled the foam out of the tank. We wound up needing something to cut cable ties with. We have our cutter here that we did the return line with from Channel Lock. We got some AN wrenches, which those wouldn't be necessary, but I would recommend them, particularly just go this route, especially if you do a lot of this stuff or plan to in the future. 4mm hex wrench to adjust the fuel pump position on the rails. We needed a 3/16 hex socket for our cap bolts here. And I think that was it. I believe that's a recap of the tools. So drill, 3/16 bit, AN wrenches, kind of optional. Cutters, sort of optional as well. You could get by with a lot of different things. 90-degree needle nose wrenches to retrieve stuff that you drop into your fuel cell. And I think that's about it. We got our Klein work light here. I did use that off camera to kind of line things up. Helped out a lot. And again, since it's magnetic, I can just stick that to the trunk of the duster. I can bring it down. You see the lights that come in. Comes in handy. You gotta love magnets, man. But, I think that's about it. One last thing I want to do here is reach across and grab this. This was the bane of my existence in terms of this fuel cell. This is how it was set up from Summit. Obviously, I'm the cool guy that painted it. It used to be a little bit nicer condition, but their piece inside was plastic. Absolutely nothing wrong with that. I mean, it is a plastic fuel cell after all, but essentially, with this cap, the way it would work, you're supposed to come in, right, and pull it out, and you would fuel. You can see all the discoloration. I've built this this part of the duster I would have done in like 05, somewhere in that range. So that's what it looks like after 13 years, and it's not, you know, frequently driven or anything, but you can see the corrosion is kind of getting on the cap. Nonetheless, this would drop down. You can see this is what the paint marks are for. This was to try and save me time at the pump because I had so much trouble with this. That's not something I did when it was new. That's something I did trying to fix the engineering issues. So this is tucked in now, right? And you can see these tabs where they line up. Let me see if you can. It's so awkward looking at the camera from this angle. But right there, that should just lift through, right? Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. But the way it should lock is you just come in and it twists, right? And now all of a sudden if I want to pull up, I can't because this doesn't have clearance. Now when I twist back, you've got to get it to come out. The issue was, I think, just over time the plastic would heat up, expand, and contract, and then that would make things really, really complicated. But this is the flange that was on the bottom. If you're ever curious what those looked like, this is basically the lid as it was removed from the Summit tank. And we basically are going from that to this. So let me grab the camera for you so you can experience this in all its glory. Alright, I need my screen back over here. Boom. You tell me, man. I think we did the right thing here. That is quite the improvement. It looks better. Number one, this is always going to open. So anyone that's had a fuel cell and street drives their car, even probably just as a race car on the weekends or every other weekend type of a deal, you probably wrestled with it too. But if it's a street car with a fuel cell, I know you've had these problems. So this is going to be so much nicer. Again, the way this works, we're just going to thread off this cap. Check it out. Boom. We're inside. We're able to put the gas filler there. We can put a funnel in. We can use a Sparco jug, whatever we want to do. Sunoco. There are some new Sunoco fuel jugs I plan to bring in because current gas cans suck. They're absolutely terrible. They've just gotten gradually worse since I was a kid. I guess they say it's for safety. It's absurdity, in my opinion. But there it is. Obviously, we need to plumb things. Again, return right here. And this is, you can orient this however you want to. I should mention that. My thoughts were, I'm going to pull up. You can see there the filler tube from the factory. It's an American car, right? So we're going to fill up on the driver's side most of the time. That's where this kind of orients. That was nice. Number two, what was nice about that is right here, the return is sort of in the middle. It's just like my vent line there. Right here where we come out, that sort of lines up with my old setup where I would come out on this side of the sump. You can see it down there. Capped, not capped. That answers that question, right? And then the other thing, I plan to run my wires that direction, at least initially, so that sort of works out well too. Keep in mind, if you're the opposite of me, if you're overseas, whatever your logic, if you want the filler to be on that side, do it. It's all adjustable, whatever positions you can get out of the 6-bolt flange. and you're good to go. So that's the Warzone, man. Also a flathead. I forgot to mention the flathead. We had to use that. So pin down all your measurements, take notes, take pictures as always, practice safety. And again, right there, man, that is all that foam that came out of this fuel cell. So that's gone too. But hey, got that thing installed. We're one step closer to being fuel injected in the Duster. Going to be an exciting time, exciting day, and I hope I will catch you back for that. As always, make sure you are subscribed here on YouTube. Jump through all their hoops, ring all their bells. Maybe, just maybe, you'll get notified when we do another video. Similarly, if you follow me on Twitter, Lone Star Mopars, you will be able to see we will tweet the videos when they go live. You can also keep tabs on some other things, events and whatnot. Similarly, if you follow along on Instagram, we'll eventually start posting more pictures, which some of you might enjoy. You can also find us on Facebook and Google+. Make sure you check out the forum at LoneStarMopars.com. That said, I'm going to get out of the shop, go make some supper. It's about 8:30 Sunday night now. My fun time has come to an end. Got to clean up here, get inside, get some cooking, and get some sleep, because tomorrow is a work day. So, nonetheless, I hope you did enjoy. If you got any questions or comments, feel free to ask. Try to walk you through pretty much every facet of this installation. So, it will vary on your unique application, but in this case, I believe it's a 16-gallon, 2-inch sump cell in the back of a Duster. We're home free. So, I'm excited. We're going to move forward with the fuel injection, and we will take from there. I should mention, if you do things in bits and pieces, cap these off. You can have this pump in there. I mean, you totally could do that and still run your mechanical. In fact, I might do that for a little bit, particularly if I need to move the car, decide I want to drive it. But it's totally an option, because until this is hooked up, that pump's not going to be doing anything. So, don't know that I would advise it. I don't think most people would. But if you were ever in that position and you still had your factory mechanical pump and carb going, you could totally rock that. So I will leave it at that. Thanks for watching. I'll catch you back here for more from the shop.